Hey guys, I'm just in my backyard and I'm going to talk a little bit about wicking beds today. So we've been using wicking beds for almost a decade now, and we've had a lot of experience with them. We know what works and what doesn't. We use them in our greenhouses as well as outside of our house. And so the first time around I built wicking beds, I looked online for a bunch of information and I couldn't find one, and so I ended up writing a blog which ends up being one of our most visited blogs every single month. So if you haven't seen our wicking bed blog, it's super descriptive on how to design your own wicking bed, and I'll put the link in the show notes below. Over the years, though, as I've experimented with it, I've gotten a little bit better with these wicking beds, and so I recently rebuilt a couple of ours, and I wanted to talk a little bit about some of the improvements that I've made, which are not large, like huge. They're just small little improvements, but they've made a really big difference in performance and specifically how we water them. So in this video, I'm going to talk about those improvements. I'm also going to talk about why I hate wicking beds as well as why I love them. So let's get into it, guys. So this wicking bed right here is a new addition. We decided that this was the hottest part of our property, and so we wanted to have one outside. And you'll notice that we've got this wicking bed built out of an IBC tote. Here, I'll back up a bit so you can see it. And so basically what you do is you just cut a tote in half, and the bottom half, which has a valve on it, you can just put a pipe on and with a standpipe, which is your overflow. And on the other side, you've got a bulkhead fitting, which you can also put a standpipe on. And I'll get a close-up of that so you guys can see it. And so it's really simple. You basically just fill the bottom up with gravel. You put landscape fabric on top of that gravel, and then you make sure that the standpipe, this guy right here, has the same elevation as the gravel inside the actual tank itself. And that way your wicking bed doesn't turn into a bathtub. So that part's the same with regards to what I recommend on my blog. Typically though, what we used to do with the standpipe is we used to use it for an overflow and also a fill as well. But some of you guys have big hoses. We have a pretty big hose, we got a big nozzle, and so it doesn't fit inside there. And so we end up having to sit here for a long time to fill it up. And in addition, we've also found more effective ways to actually water it. And sometimes we'll change our watering modality to benefit the actual wicking bed itself. And I'll talk a little bit more about that at the end of the video. So the one thing that we've done, which has made a really big difference in how we water, is we've added in this weeping tile right here. And so this weeping tile goes to the bottom of the wicking bed, and then we just push it up into the corner right here, so that we can actually just dump our hose in here when we want to water it. It fills up, and we know that the overflow is set to the right height and it won't turn it into a bathtub. This has made a really big difference. However, I recommend you got to be a little bit careful with them if you're putting this into a public place, because I've noticed that people like to put cigarette butts into those pipes. So if you're putting it into a public place, put a little cap over top of it or hide it underneath a stone or something like that so that nobody really knows what's underneath there. Now, over the years of using these wicking beds, what I've noticed is that the soil really does like to dry out a little bit. In fact, soil has to go through periods of wet and dry in order to properly breathe. And if you just keep it wet all the time, the soil pugs up and it goes anaerobic and the plants aren't super happy. So we've actually found it to be beneficial to not always water through these pipes. Sometimes we'll actually just water on the surface of the soil to actually allow water to penetrate through the entire soil column. So we try and change it up. We try and let the wicking bed dry out a little bit once in a while. We try and water from the top, and then we also water from the bottom. And each of them has its own advantages and mimics different things. And we found that the plants are happier when they get a variation of different watering sources and supplies. It's good to let the whole water column get wet once in a while, and it's good to let that whole water column dry out a little bit as well, so that we get that aerobic oxygen exchange in the wicking bed itself. We have one other style of wicking bed that we have at the front of our property. So if you don't have ICB totes or you find that they're ugly, I'll show you the other style of wicking bed that we use. I generally recommend people use wicking beds when they want to have their greens or veggies close to their house, but they don't want to infiltrate water close to their foundation. One of the things I get really concerned about with swales and other water infiltration techniques in the urban environment is when we get our water infiltration happening a little bit too close to our foundation. And so wicking beds can be a really great solution to making sure that we're not infiltrating too close to that foundation and causing hydrostatic damage. So this is our other wicking bed. It's made out of a combination of 2x4s, plywood, and cedar. And basically we built it in the same way that you'd build concrete formwork, because soil and water is really, really heavy. And so we built out the inside with plywood, and they're called whalers, 2x4 whalers, and then we put cedar boards on the outside to kind of make it look a little bit prettier. We lined it with, these ones we actually used poly. I can't believe how long they've held up. And then we filled it up with soil using the same technique as we talked about before. So we've got gravel in the bottom portion, and we've got this overflow right here. And because this is the first wicking bed that I ever built, I wasn't sure if I was going to have to be able to drain them down in the winter time. So these ones actually rotate, and we can drain them out if we want to. Never really had to use that, because by the time these vegetables are done, the soil just absorbs all of the water anyways, and so there's no water left in the bottom of the box, so it's never really been an issue. So I don't think you really need to worry about that design detail. And then lastly, we've got the same fill pipes in here as well in the corner, and we found that to be a really effective way of filling water, but we also do the top watering like I mentioned in the other one. Great, hopefully you found that interesting. If you're interested in learning to grow your own nutrient dense food, design your own resilient home, acreage, or farm, or get some help designing them, check us out at vergepermaculture.ca or adaptivehabitat.ca, and you'll find more information on all of this stuff. Thanks so much, have a great day. We'll talk to you guys soon.